that he would come in first.
Well, Abraham Lincoln obviously did not free the slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation didn't free any slaves that Lincoln controlled. In fact, it had exemptions for not only the territory, it had exemptions, for instance, for New Orleans. Territories in the South under the control of the Union Army were exempted from this Emancipation Proclamation. More to the point, however, style is important. I mean, showing up is important. Bill Clinton showed up a lot, but he also did something else. At the back of my book, 21 pages of names of African Americans who were appointed to major positions in his administration.
All right, let's get to Lincoln for a minute, because I know a lot of people are going to be upset by your comment there. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there were subtexts in the Emancipation Proclamation, but you can't deny that Abraham Lincoln and hundreds of thousands of Union troops, I think Lincoln lost his life because of trying to free the slaves. That's why he was assassinated, and so did hundreds of thousands of Union troops. I mean, why diminish that accomplishment? Why, when, look, it comes down to losing your life to try to free black people as opposed to making appointments. Come on.
Bill, he did not free black people. I'm not trying to diminish an accomplishment. There was no accomplishment. Read the Emancipation Proclamation.
I have.
I
have. And whether you subtext it or not, the result of the Civil War was freedom from slavery for black Americans. That was the result of the Civil War.
The Congress of the United States, after Lincoln's death, enacted the 13th Amendment, which freed slaves.
And you don't believe that Abraham Lincoln wanted that to be done and did everything possible to keep the Union together so it could be done?
Abraham Lincoln wrote in what is a famous but largely overlooked letter to Horace Greeley, if I could save the Union without freeing a single slave, I would.
It was very early on in his career.
No, it was not.
Yes, it was.
No, it was not.
It was when he was in Illinois, I believe.
No, he wrote this letter to Horace Greeley in 1864.
Well, I'd have to see the letter. I mean, that sounds out of context to me. You may be right, but I'm saying from my studying of history, the accomplishments of Abraham Lincoln and what he did dwarf Bill Clinton's accomplishments. Now, I say, and look, I don't want to diminish Bill Clinton's stature in the black community, because he did, under his administration, blacks came up in every economic category, more than whites did. So that's a solid for him. There's no, you can't take it away from him.
Black unemployment down significantly.
Absolutely.
Black home
the only thing that he didn't improve on was crime and unwed pregnancies. Socially, they didn't improve.
Well, Bill, come on. How much does the president have to do with crime?
No,
crime is a local issue.
It's not when you get block grants to the extent that President Clinton was doling them out. Well, crime came down in every sector of the United States, but proportionally still remained high in the African-American community.
Well,
and the other thing is...
Wait a minute. If the President of the United States provides a block grant to states that provides for the hiring of 100,000 new police officers and crime doesn't come down, do you blame the President or do you blame law enforcement agencies?
I blame the criminals, Mr. Wickman. I'll tell you the truth. That's who I blame for crime, the people who commit it. Well, and I don't really care.
I blame the same people.
All right, good. So we're on that. Now, as far as black appointments are concerned, here are the cabinet officers President Clinton appointed. Ronald Brown, Mike Espy, Hazel O'Leary, Togo West, Alexis Herman, Rodney Slater, and Leo P. Brown. 5 of those individuals had scandals attached to them. You know, I hate to point that out, but it's true that 5 out of the 9 have scandals attached to them.
Okay.
You know, I mean, just because you appoint somebody doesn't make you a great president.
So what's your point?
My point is, you're hanging him on the black community.
Sometimes where there's smoke, there's only smoke.
No.
How many of those people whom you referenced there were convicted of any crimes?
No one, none.
No one. Okay.
But Hazel O'Leary was an embarrassment. I'm sure you would.
So there was more smoke than fire. But I talk about 21 pages of people.
No, I've got them here. No question. But I don't know about the quality. Now look, my final question is, you know, George Bush came in second in the white. I think it's a lack of history. I don't think all Americans, black, white, whatever color they are, they don't know what happened. So they're just pulling names out that they know, and that's why this happens. I'll give you the last word.
I think there's some of that, but I think quite certainly there's something else going on here, too. When African Americans looked at Bill Clinton, when they looked at his record, when they looked at his appointments, when they looked at the way he related to the black community, they gave him high marks, and I think correctly so.
All right. We are going to do a talking points memo tomorrow, Mr. Wickman, on the letter that you pointed out to Horace Greeley. I'll get it. And also other things about President Lincoln's attitude towards slavery. I think it'll be very interesting for everybody to hear that, and we appreciate your time very much tonight.
Good to be with you.
Next on the rundown, why don't Americans know more about history? Perhaps because our high schools...
Shepard Smith, a presentation of Fox News Channel, the network America trusts, period.
The O'Reilly Factor is on tonight. The state of Tennessee is a destination for many foreign terrorists. We'll tell you why in a shocking report. Supreme Court Justice in Alabama delivers a scathing attack on gays. We'll tell you all about that. Why are some Americans feeling sorry for Andrea Yates, the child killer? We'll find out. And the truth about Abraham Lincoln and slavery. Caution, you are about to enter a no-spin zone. Factor begins in 90 seconds.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lori Dew. We have some breaking news out of the Middle East. Israeli forces have blown up the Voice of Palestine headquarters, taking the radio and television off the air. The incident happened during a raid in the eastern Gaza Strip tonight. This is yet another Israeli retaliatory attack on Palestinians that have been going on for the last couple of days now. This is in response to Israel losing 13 soldiers in the past week. We'll keep you posted on any and all developments out of the Middle East. Meantime, the body count at a Georgia crematory has reached 200, and the state's chief medical examiner says he expects more bodies will be found. Search crews found bodies buried behind the home of the crematory's operator, and investigators have decided to drain a nearby lake after a torso and skull were found there. In tapes released by the FAA, conversations between air traffic controllers and pilots of an American Airlines plane that crashed in New York City last November gave no hint that anything was wrong. The crash killed 260 people on the plane and 5 more on the ground. The cause is still being investigated. And 40 years ago today, John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth. The flight circled the globe 3 times and lasted nearly 5 hours before his capsule splashed into the ocean. More news at the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned now for the O'Reilly Factor here on Fox.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Spinning Abraham Lincoln is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. I am really getting steamed about all this revisionist history going on. The trashing of heroes to further political agendas in contemporary America is despicable. In Brooklyn, we have some militants removing pictures of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson from the town hall and extolling the virtues of people like Malcolm X. Last night on The Factor, we reported on an ABC News poll that showed African Americans believe Bill Clinton was a better president than Abraham Lincoln, with all due respect. That's like comparing caviar to Velveeta. The journalist Dewayne Wickham put forth that Mr. Lincoln was not all that opposed to slavery and pointed to a letter Lincoln wrote to the abolitionist author Horace Greeley in 1862. Greeley was demanding that Lincoln immediately free all the slaves. Lincoln replied that he first had to reunite the country. Here's the passage Mr. Wickham criticized Lincoln for writing. My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not either to save or to destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. Mr. Wickham believes it proves Lincoln was not the great emancipator, but nothing could be further from the truth. Dr. Daniel Lewis, who lives in Durham, North Carolina, writes, the meaning to Lincoln's letter to Greeley was completely lost by Mr. Wickham. Lincoln always detested slavery. He simply believed that saving the Union was most essential before freedom could be brought to everyone. In 1854, years before he became president and the Civil War began, Lincoln said in a speech, if the Negro is a man, why then my ancient faith teaches me that all men are created equal, and that there can be no moral right in connection with one man's making a slave of another. During the Civil War, Lincoln made scores of statements against slavery, including this one. I am naturally anti-slavery. If slavery is not wrong, nothing is wrong. I cannot remember when I did not so think and feel. Once again, Abraham Lincoln was willing to compromise his core beliefs to keep the United States intact, but his ultimate goal was for all people on American soil to have freedom. Of course, he signed the 13th Amendment freeing the slaves before he died. Once again, Talking Points is saddened and angered by the vicious spin that has entered our national discourse. Lincoln was assassinated by an advocate of slavery. He risked his life time and time again for justice and succeeded in reunifying America. To portray him as unfeeling racist is morally wrong, and that is flat out the truth. It's also the memo. Now for the top story tonight. Authorities in